Hello students, welcome to week 1 of COM 565, your capstone course. And like we addressed in our meeting in October, I am very excited for you that you've reached this point in the semester in your area of studies where you are ready to go with finalizing your degree. You're at the last step, and like I said before, I hope you are excited about that. Here's some information about how to get in touch with me. Most of you already have, so that's great. This is just a review, but you should definitely contact me by email. That's usually the best way. I can be available by phone, but it's usually my office hours are limited, so I don't always get those voicemails in a timely fashion. So if it's an immediate request, definitely utilize email. And like I said, I'm Dr. Romo, for those of you that do not know me. Do keep in mind that if there are any discussion board assignments in this course, which I believe there are, those are few and far between. Typically, it's just turning in your drafts each week, that those have 2 deadlines. Do keep in mind that late work's not accepted, especially in the nature of this course. This course, you're turning in a huge chunk of work each week, so it's very important you get that in not only early in the week, but definitely by the deadline so I can provide feedback in a timely fashion, especially if you're submitting work and the coming week is one of the weeks where you have a required weekly viewing of meeting with me and things of that nature. So do keep that in mind. Don't forget the weekly lectures are imperative to view, especially on those off weeks where you're not meeting with me, because some of you are assigned to meet with me on even weeks or odd weeks. So do keep that in mind as well. As we get to some important stuff this week, it's important to look at our agenda. You're reading chapter 1 of the online text that's found for free through the eBrary. That's to highlight and enhance your instruction. Really what I want you to do is spend time watching the videos that are posted in Blackboard, as well as getting in touch with me to meet with me on your assigned week. So if you have a week 2 meeting, now's the time to get in touch with me to schedule your week 2 meetings. If you have a week 1 meeting and you haven't met with me yet, then it's very imperative you get in touch with me soon. Also, keep in mind that you need to be spending a lot of time in the scholarship. Remember, you're writing a 30 to 50 page paper, so you are going to be spending an enormous amount of time looking for resources and sources to support what you have to say. So this week you're turning in your introduction and purpose statement. The purpose statement is embedded usually within one of the last paragraphs of your chapter 1 or your introduction, excuse me. So within your introduction, you introduce the topic. We'll get into in a second. Your purpose statement is usually the last thing there before you get into your lit review. Just highlighting some dates from your Master's Capstone Guidelines book that was already given out at our October meeting. Do keep in mind bi-weekly meetings. It's in the syllabus, is required. If you've not reached out to schedule one for week 2, if you're a week 2 student, do so ASAP. If you're a week 1 student and we haven't met yet, then you need to get in touch with me as soon as possible as well. It's also important to know the dates that are listed here of our required initial meetings. We already did that on October 3rd. December 11th, your final draft is due in Blackboard, and your required capstone physical attendance requirement to present your capstone to the faculty is on December 12th. That will be at 6 p.m. I just got confirmation of that, so do keep that in mind. I'll send out more information later. The master's hooding, if you're participating in that, is on December 14th, and the commencement is on December 15th, and you'll be notified by the university of those dates and those times and RSV requirements. So do keep that in mind. Briefly going through some information. This is just highlighting what we covered in our October 3rd meeting. The capstone is a research paper. Remember, it's more substantial than any term paper you've ever written, and depending on your topic and methodology, it can range anywhere from 30 to 50 pages. Here's a snapshot of what you would do if you're doing a research proposal. You do have time to actually conduct research if you want, and let me take a moment here to note the majority of you have reached out to me to let me know your topics. If you haven't done that already, it's imperative that you do that ASAP. Otherwise, the success for you in this course is dependent on getting that topic nailed out, probably before Wednesday. So it's at that point where you don't have the luxury of finishing up and kind of looking at ideas. You just need to hit the ground running and come up with a topic and go with it. So with that, it's important that you can choose between 2 types, the research proposal and the rhetorical analysis. And we already went through that in depth in our October 3rd meeting, so I'm typically just highlighting this here if you haven't decided on what your methodology is for this assignment. If you choose the rhetorical analysis, you are analyzing an artifact. You're breaking down a particular type of communication and analyzing it through a number of different ways. Your capstone's guideline provides you with the detailed information of how to do the rhetorical analysis and what's that needed, and we'll work those out in our weekly meetings, but definitely keep that in mind. And like I said, this is just highlighting it at this point, so if you have any questions, do get in touch with me. So draft number 1, your introduction and purpose statement. Your first submission, it's going to be at least 5 to 7 pages. It's important to keep that in mind. Your introduction should provide the reader with a clear overview of the planned research, not in a methodological sense that's saved for the methodology section, but in an introductory sense that's captivating the reader and drawing the reader to what you're writing. So in your introduction, I need to feel compelled and captivated for 1, a need for your research, 2, a clear overview of what the topic is, and 3, some of what your arguments will provide. So it's really important to do that. The last thing you'll put in your introduction is your purpose statement, which is really like a thesis statement. And your purpose statement in a paper of the size that you're writing, 30 to 50 pages, will be upwards of a paragraph. It's going to be specific and precise. It's going to be concise in the sense for the term of this paper, it's about a paragraph, and clear to give us a clear idea of what it is the purpose of your actual research is. And so everything up until the point of the purpose statement in your introduction leads to that. So it's the end result of your introduction. You're gearing me up to read through that and understand what that may be. So it clearly tells you the nature of your research proposal, or clearly tells you the research you're conducting for your rhetorical analysis. And that's very, very important to understand and kind of go on from there. So that's what you'll be doing this week. The requirement is 5 to 7 pages. I always tell students shoot upwards of 10 pages each week, then you'll have more than enough pages, especially when we get down to the editing portion and we're editing it and for clarity and concise nature and things of that nature. To use an example, my dissertation was 220 pages, including references in its first draft, and then it ended up being 200 pages total with references afterwards. So 20 pages were cut just from doing edits and things of that nature. So definitely write more than you think you'll need. It'll be useful to you in the end. As we move into some more of the course content, it's important to see here what the research process is. So it begins up here with a research idea. That's what we lay out in our introduction. We move through a literature review, we formulate some theoretical or empirical questions, show us research design, and for us, we're going to stop there if you're doing a research proposal. If you want to do the actual research, that's where you get into data collection, data analyses, and answering the questions and the theoretical interpretation of the results and get into the conclusion. But my point is the research process is circular. It starts with an idea, you move through the motions to end with a conclusion and answering the idea. It's really important to understand the nature of that. So as we look through some important things, it's important to know that communication research must be systematic to be effective. It also studies the processes through which meaning and social reality are created and managed. It looks at the flow of information and the interchange of messages between individuals in different contexts, as well as utilizing theory to explain this. Sometimes we're just examining regularities in social life, and major purposes of research in general is to explore, describe, or explain. So it's really important when you look at this interdisciplinary nature of communication that we're exploring something, we're explaining something, or describing something. And at times we can use inductive reasoning and logic or general principles to really develop and largely through our observations of communication behaviors and phenomenons. So it's really important to understand some of those implications in that. In case you do not have your research methodology chosen yet, I'm going to give you a brief comparison of quantitative and qualitative research. So these types of research would apply to a research proposal. Qualitative is usually designed to gain a broader perspective and understanding of reasons or motivations for something, particularly related to communication behavior phenomena. So you want to gain a deeper understanding of the underlying reasons for certain phenomena and behaviors within communication. Quantitative research wants to quantify and generalize results of observing or analyzing behaviors or phenomenon within communication. Differences there. A deeper understanding means we're going to get rich data from that. A quantitative or quantifying the understanding means that we want to generalize this into statistical data that's utilized to usually represented in percentages and showing validity and things of that nature. So you can see the differences there. Qualitative is largely unstructured. Quantitative is structured. It's non-statistical and qualitative, it's statistical and quantitative. So if you're using the route of the research proposal, it's important to see how this applies within your research and your analysis. It's very, very important. If you're going the route of rhetorical analysis, you're actually utilizing critical research. It's actually considered critical or historical research methods. It assumes that social reality is historically constituted and produced and reproduced by people. It also assumes that people's ability to consciously act to change their social and economic circumstances is constrained by various forms of social, cultural, and political domination. Really, by acknowledging the main task of research is one social critique of something. So you're critiquing something within society. You're critically evaluating a communication artifact. You're critically looking at it to prove or disprove maybe how a theory is used, or the evidence of a theory within this, or how attitudes are shaped through this theory. So you're critically evaluating some form of social reality or social interaction with society. And that's very, very, very important to keep in mind. So do keep in mind as we move forward within our course, you are constructing your first draft. You're working on the first section, which for everybody is the same as the introduction and the purpose statement. Don't stop short there. Week 2 is your literature review, and that's usually the biggest chunk of time that it's going to take you to do the majority of your thing. You're going to have to sift through many, 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 many types of references to construct a solid literature review. Like I said, reach out to me to schedule your weekly meetings if you have not already, and I pray you all have a blessed week. God bless.